Hi, I'm Traci Ramos, and this is Booze Nation, the podcast, where I talk to members of the bar industry of San Francisco about all things bars and all things San Francisco. Booze Nation is available on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and other listening places. Also, Booze Nation is on the socials of Instagram, YouTube, and Threads. I want to give a special shout out to the Uptown Bar on 17th and Cap Street. I'm so sorry that this bar didn't make it. I have such wonderful memories of this bar. They even cut me off on my birthday one year because I was having too much wonderfulness. I deserved to be cut off that night. But thank you again for everything, and I hope the bartenders will be pouring spirits someplace soon. This is my final episode of 2023, and I'm closing out the year with Erin Lim, a fellow bartender and podcaster who hosts the spectacular Bitch Talk podcast with Angela Tabora. And I discovered Bitch Talk at the beginning of the pandemic. It was that fateful Sunday when Pretty Boy Newsome announced the shutdown of the restaurant and bar industry in California to try and curb the rise of the coronavirus. I was scrolling on Instagram, not really freaking out about what was happening, but not knowing what to do. And Bitch Talk podcast popped up on my feed. And Erin and Ange were at a bar in North Beach, the Saloon, in real time. And they were drinking and dancing. And they were having so much fun in the wake of the pandemic. And I just thought, wow. They don't care what Pretty Boy Newsome said 2 hours ago. They don't care. They are at a bar and they are going big. And I loved it. And that was my introduction to Erin and Ange at Bitch Talk podcast. I want to read Bitch Talk's tagline. Bitch Talk is a podcast that boldly highlights the ongoing need for BIPOC women's representation in media, film, and the arts. Hell yeah, there's a need for more BIPOC women representation. That's one reason I started this podcast, because we need more BIPOC representation behind the bar and in the industry. I 100% agree with that. And long story short, we became podcast friends and real life friends, which I still kind of can't believe because they are so legit. They've been in the podcast game for so long. They just had their 10th anniversary. I love it. And we're going to jump right into the interview with Erin. I feel like I knew this about you, but are you Bay Area native?
Yes, I am.
San Francisco native or Bay Area native?
No. So I was born on the peninsula long ago. And then I think when I was, I'll say 6 months old or something like that, within the last, the first year of my life, my parents moved to San Leandro. So that's where I grew up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, East Bay. Yep. Yeah. Wish I could afford to go back. That's a different podcast.
So that really is. I try not to, read SF standard.
Yeah.
And it was just 1.7 million to live in San Francisco comfortably. And I was just fuck you.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, of course it's 1.7 million to live comfortably in San Francisco, but you know who owns San Francisco standard. So
yeah, precisely. Okay. So San Leandro, do you visit often?
No. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if you do visit, what's changed?
Oof. The only time I visit is if I do a drive-by at my old house. So that neighborhood seems to be the same. The house that I left, God, I don't know, my mid to late 20s, is still pretty much the same. San Leandro itself, I have no idea how it's changed. I haven't been to the mall in forever, Bayfair. And downtown, though, even I don't know, 10 to 15 years ago was changing at the time. There were higher end restaurants and coffee shops, which I'm not shitting on at all. I think that's great. But those are the things that I saw changing then. I'm sure it's totally changed. I'm sure the makeup has changed. But yeah, when I visit my old neighborhood, it still feels, it seems the same. But a lot of the neighbors around there, except for one, have all moved out.
I was a mall kid too. I loved going to the mall. Of course. It was kind of the best thing.
It's my first job.
What was your first job in the mall?
Okay. So my mall ended up being the mall in Pleasanton, Stone Ridge. And I guess that was a fancy mall at the time.
Yes.
So I ended up working at probably like one of my most favorite jobs in the world. My first job, real job, was at Sanrio Surprises, of course. So I was all things Hello Kitty, all things Little Twin Stars, all things Karo Karo Karopi. So that was my like first retail job.
I know exactly what mall you're talking about because I'm Central Valleyan. And so we had Vintage Fair Mall, but the mall that you are talking about was kind of like the glamorous mall in Pleasanton. It was. We would drive to it like on very special occasions to go shopping and buy things in Contempo.
Oh, Contempo casuals.
Yes.
Miller's Outpost, if you will.
Oh my God, my favorite. I don't know how many orange Julius's I consume.
So that was my 90s life.
I love it. When did you make the move into San Francisco and into bartending?
Oh boy. San Francisco separately in bartending or San Francisco bartending?
Separately.
San Francisco ended up moving here. My cousin was moving out of her place. And I've been in it ever since. And that was 2005. Yeah. So rent control. Got that rent control. So you're gonna laugh, Traci. I might be the less seasoned of bartenders that have ever been on your show. I only started bartending in March of 2022.
Okay. Yeah.
Old lady bartender. I always wanted to bartend. Always. Like I'm so mad at myself that in the 90s, I didn't partake in, I worked at Chili's as a host and I should have started bartending and or waiting tables. It just really intimidated me. It intimidated me so hard that I didn't do it. So I always wanted to bartend, love bars. I love bar culture in terms of, I like the getting to know people at the bar. I like when there used to be a lot of bars with no TVs, you just had to interact with other people. I just loved the whole thing. So, and I probably romanticized it. I know it's a hard job. So hard on your body. But my friend who owns the social study, I've known her for forever. Last March, we were just hanging out and she was looking for someone. And I said, well, if you want to teach an old dog new tricks, I've always wanted to bartend. And I just didn't want to go back to corporate America at all after the pandemic at all. So yeah, I took a gig there a couple of days a week and now I'm there like four days a week and I love it. And I feel I'm really lucky to be at a bar at a cafe that's owned by a woman. Just have to say that out loud. That's owned it the entire time. It'll be 12 years that the social study's been around next year and that she took a chance on me. So yeah, almost 2 years. Yeah.
That's great. I love hearing that. And that's probably going to be my next podcast is Old Lady Bartenders.
Yes.
And then my other podcast is going to be Fuck You Yell.
Yes. Yeah, that's not out already?
Yeah. Right. So if you started in 2022, you kind of missed the pandemic lockdown of the restaurant bar industry. What were you doing between 2020 and 2022?
So you know my husband, Jeff Hunt, Storied San Francisco. So, if you remember the good old days right before the pandemic, that little sweet spot of they're like, oh, they might be closing down stuff for like 2 weeks, or maybe they won't. It was that weekend. There was a weekend very specifically in March, right? So that Friday night, I'll never forget it. It was my podcast team and Jeff, and we're in North Beach because that's where we used to record. And so we're like, we're gonna go out, we're gonna have a pizza, and we're gonna go to our favorite bar.
Is it the Saloon?
No, but the Saloon does play. Oh my God, Specs. Hello, we're gonna go to Specs. That's what we did. Great night. And then that weekend was like, are they? Aren't they? Newsome's making some kind of announcement. He's not. We actually were at an IKEA the day that. The IKEA in Emeryville, just in case, because that's the greatest place to go when COVID is, on the rise. It's an IKEA. It's the IKEA in Emeryville,
on a
right?
Sunday too.
On a Sunday, my podcasting partner Ange, for some reason, really needed a bar for their apartment, like a place to keep their bottles and stuff. And why not during the pandemic go get a bar? Because it actually helped. But anyways, we're at IKEA, we're crossing the bridge, and that's when Newsome, we're coming back to the city. Newsome made his announcement that he's going to be, shutting down or whatever. So we're like, well, we have to drop our friend off back in North Beach. Let's go to a bar really fast because it feels imminent. So we did end up going to the saloon, and it was a great and weird afternoon. There were cops walking up and down, as they do, they still do, walking up and down North Beach. The bartender, I don't know her name. She's an older lady. I think she's passed since we've been in there. But she kept making the announcements. I might be closing. The cops are coming. I might be closing. This is it. This is it. And we're like, okay, let's drink. Let's drink. And they even had a band. They had like I don't know, it was a lot of horns. It felt a little bit like I don't know. It just felt like, okay, if this is the end of the world, this is lucky. We're lucky right now. Right. So that was it. And then things didn't close that Sunday, or maybe they did. And then that Monday, my husband and I ran to Smart and Final, which we never shop at. Like, we have never gone out on purpose to go shop at a Smart and Final, but that's where we ended up going that Monday. And we got things that I might still have in the cupboard that we never ate. And then we went to the 540 Club because, again, we gotta hit up the places. And I'll never forget it. We're sitting in there, and someone walked by, and I looked out, and it was Matt Gonzalez, hilarious, walking around Clement Street smoking, I think, as he does. And I was like, "Holy shit, is that Matt Gonzalez?" I'm like, "Is this it?" And then it was shut down. Like that, we went home, and that was it. So that was we were frequenting all of our favorite places before the shutdown, and yeah, here we are. And it was weird, like. I was working for a museum at the time, and it was horrific. I'll just be honest. You can check my LinkedIn where I worked. I won't put them on blast on this podcast, but it was really traumatic, very traumatic. But we were trying to do the thing. We're trying to still be a thing during a pandemic, even though we're shut down. We're trying to be online, but museums really are not places that are online. And that was hard. And so it was just hard. And then finally in April of 2020, when they laid me off, thank whoever, thank the goddesses, thank anyone. Because it got to the point where I'm like, I'm either leaving or they got to lay me off. And they laid me off. And so I was riding that wave of unemployment and severance. Thank goodness for a while, somehow got married in that little space of time. We got engaged in 2019, hilariously, in July of 2019. And we're like, oh, 2020 wedding. Yeah, that didn't happen. Three times we were scheduled, and then finally got married in October 2021. Somehow in that sweet spot where there was like no COVID somehow.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, remember there was like that 2 weeks maybe. And that's when our wedding was. And no one that we know of, because we would think people would tell us no one got COVID. So, and we basically had a bar crawl, not on purpose for our wedding. But bars played a really important part in our wedding. We had our wedding at Casements in the backyard. We made that decision a month out, and they accommodated us, and it was lovely. And then we had our cocktail hour at the Royal Cuckoo. That's it. Royal Cuckoo. And then a reception and a dance party was at the Front Porch and at the Rock Bar.
That's definitely a good loop.
We had a band show up and march us from the Royal Cuckoo over to the Front Porch. We surprised our guests. Yeah. I mean, I love New Orleans. I mean, talking about bar culture, there's something about that place beyond, of course, I love the bar culture and drinking, and it's great, but there's something about that place that's really special. We couldn't do our wedding in New Orleans. We didn't really think about that. So we brought New Orleans to our wedding.
I love New Orleans. That's a great city. It may be one of the last great cities in the States.
Yeah. I mean, yes.
San Francisco's having some really hard times for a variety of reasons. For me, the loss of identity is really one of the big issues with San Francisco. And knock on wood, I feel like New Orleans, they faced a lot of issues, obviously, but I still feel like they have held onto their identity.
Yeah. They've held onto their culture somehow.
Yeah.
They really they're like, you can gentrify all these neighborhoods. There can be hurricanes. Our infrastructure sucks. I mean, it does. We were just there last year. But God damn it, we're going to have music every day, everywhere, all the time. We are going to have parades for any reasons we want to every day in all the different neighborhoods. I mean, it's so special. So I love that. And we just wanted to have that kind of as a part of our wedding. So that's what we were doing during COVID. And then, I need to get a job. I didn't know what I was going to do really. And then the bartending gig popped up. And I'm lucky too, because it's not a full bar. It's beer, wine, soju, sake, cocktails. And then we do coffee and we have food. So it's pretty manageable, at least for me, because I don't have to be making rando cocktails. Like, do you know how to make a pink squirrel? We have a very elderly family member that likes a pink squirrel. So that's why. Do you know how to make that, Traci?
Absolutely not. But I'm willing to learn.
Guess what? Now when you go work at one of the bars you work at, someone's going to ask for that.
I hope so. I think like with the cocktails and the craft cocktails, what bothers me is when people have no idea what they want and what they like. And so if you try and ask, hey, do you want a gin-based drink? Do you want a vodka-based drink? Where do you want to start? And they just have these like lost looks in their face.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this cannot be the first time you've walked into a bar.
Sometimes,
and it's really can't. Come on, guys. Or they're asking for what they've heard is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember when Mad Men was really at the height, everybody was ordering old fashions. And I knew they didn't know what they wanted, but
right.
They saw, Don Draper guzzle. And so they were going to do it.
Yeah. I mean, whatever John Hamm does, I will do also.
I agree.
I will follow him anywhere. He might be drinking a pink squirrel. Who knows? But
I hope so. I hope John Hamm drinks pink squirrels. That would be fabulous.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to your point of whatever's cool at the moment, recently natural wines have made somehow their peak this year in 2023. And there was one customer in particular, they just came in, they're like, do you have any natural wines? I'm like, no, but this is what we have. Okay, I'll do scrimshaw. I'm like, wow, we jumped from like a natural wine to like a Pilsner. Okay. Because I was like, but we have these other wines that you might like. So it was just to the point of people don't really know what they are wanting. Or the orange wine phenomenon, which I still have not tried. I'm not going to knock it, but I don't get it. So yes, random.
Very random. So I love this question. What's your biggest pet peeve with customers? Today's episode is brought to you by Descript. When I started this podcast, I had no idea about the editing process, and it took me forever to edit one episode. And then I discovered Descript. Descript is an all-in-one audio and video editor that makes editing as easy as a Word doc. Upload media or record directly in Descript to instantly transcribe your file into text. Then tweak the text to directly edit your media clips. Edit out filler words and silent gaps with a single click. Record your screen and webcam for presentations and video messages, and edit out mistakes before publishing. Use pro editing features such as non-destructive multi-track editing, live collaboration, auto captioning, exports, and much more. I'll have a link in the show notes and you can try it out now.
Not tipping. I don't understand it.
Customers that go into social study don't tip?
Not all.
Okay.
There's a nice handful on a daily basis that do not. I think, and I'm speaking for myself, not on behalf of the owner, who I love and adore, but she knows this too. Like after the pandemic, this is how the pandemic changed the social study, because everyone was working from home. They see the name social study. I am not kidding you, Traci. And they think that we are a place that is a social study or a place to just like be quiet and do their work or study.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is a thing. And before the pandemic, and she still advertises free Wi-Fi, but it wasn't a thing where you have droves of people coming in with laptops and sitting there for hours using Wi-Fi and not ordering anything or ordering the bare minimum. So now you have people, younger people, who were first before the pandemic going into work and everything was being served to them and handed to them for free. They don't go into work anymore, but they come into places like ours and assume that that space is free to them because that was what was happening in the past. I understand not wanting to work from home all the time. It gets monotonous. I get it. But if you're going into an actual business where you look around, there's an actual bar and a kitchen, it's a business. We have rent. We got people to pay. That's how it works normally in places, even in small towns. So it's been hard to figure out that new business model. So yeah, we have people that come in and we'll just get a coffee. We do have a minimum that you have to meet, $5 for 90 minutes of use of the space. And they won't tip on coffees. And I'm like, dude, coffees take more work than like pouring beer or wine, just saying. And they'll tip on a beer or a wine. It's interesting. It's a case study for sure.
Oh, that's super frustrating.
It's also like you're tipping not only me, but our kitchen staff. Like we split our tips. So the food that's coming out of the kitchen, someone's actually back there hustling. We have a very small kitchen. It's like one oven. So it's one oven and it's a small space. So it's, yeah, I think, and it's hard. My owner really wants to be accessible too in the community. Like we're in the Fillmore. We want to be able to provide, a Coke for whatever, or a water, an iced coffee, or some food, potato skins, like easy stuff at a reasonable price. And you're in San Francisco and you're paying those prices and you're paying taxes and it's hard. So it's a balance for sure.
It's so very hard because, as we know, the Mission just took a huge hit. They lost West of Picos, Rosa Monday, Media Noche, Uptown, like that was huge.
Yeah.
And then Little Star just went down on Divisadero. Heartbreaking. That, oh my gosh.
I mean, that pizza is delicious. It's, and this is not throwing shade to any other business on Diviz. I'm just wondering if Fico has hurt that business and also the other pizza joints down the block. I don't know. I don't know that for a fact. But when I saw the news, I'm like, I just wonder, if that's just part of the issue too. But yeah, love Little Star. Love them. Like they were we were trying to order from them during the pandemic as much as we could. And I like how outspoken that owner of, do you know, Traci, if that owner owns the Valencia one too?
Yes.
But okay. So it's sad. I don't know. I love that space. There's a lot of history there.
It's still rough. They've gone into debt these past 3 years. They're still functioning somehow in debt, so that could have been a big part of that too. Because, you heard landlords were still demanding full rent during a pandemic.
Right.
Utterly unacceptable.
Capitalism, baby.
Okay, so let's talk about, oh my gosh, Bitch Talk podcast.
Oh, yeah. Woo.
Okay, so you just had a 10-year anniversary.
We did. Thank you for showing up.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. Ask me more.
So, Basic Bitch, 10 years, right? I loved you and Ange just reminiscing all about your guests. How did you and Ange meet? How did you start? Okay.
So Bitch Talk was separate from Ange, but Ange and I met like in the early 2000s. We worked in TV production together. And she will tell the story of I was kind of a bitch, but I wasn't. I was just shy, honestly. I was shy, which is hilarious. Sometimes I'm still shy and don't kind of know my place in a room or whatever. I mean, we all, I think, have those things. But we were working for kind of a medium-sized production company up north, and we were working on like the History Channel stuff, HGTV stuff, the things that were cool in early 2000s. And she was the front desk person. I was working on a show, and I don't remember exactly how we met, but we met then. I think she can I swear on this?
Yes.
She fucked up her knee, and we figured out that we lived in the same neighborhood. And so I was her ride to work. And that's, I think, just like the start of our wonderful relationship, our wonderfully long, productive, creative relationship. So that's how we met. In 2013, Bitch Talk was born, basically. My previous co-host and I were on a different podcast, which no longer exists, called Your Straight Male Friend. A lot of issues with that title. But I knew the guys that ran it. And so they wanted to bring on a bunch of single ladies that were in the city. And they plied us with mimosas, by the way. And I brought a bunch of my girlfriends at the time. I was single too. And we just talked about being single in San Francisco. After that episode we recorded, we went to Harry's Bar on Fillmore, which I have to be honest, it's whatever. Sorry. It's whatever. It's not for me, but we went there, had a couple more drinks, and literally the person I started the podcast with, she and I are like, we could do this. I think we could do this. And she listened to podcasts way more than I did at the time. And those were few and far between too. So it took us a while to like come up with the concept, think about what we wanted to do. And Bitch Talk just came out of like our happy hours with our girlfriends. We would be like, hey, you want a bitch talk? Like that's where that came from. So it's just happy houring with our friends and just bitching and talking a little bit. So that's where that came. And then after our 100th episode, which we did a live show at the Hemlock, RIP, that bar was so good. And they had that backstage area where they had events. So that's what we did. And after that, I want to say a few episodes after that, she was like, I can't do this anymore. I was devastated. And so I didn't know if Bitch Talk was going to go on. And Ange had been on a couple times. She was actually on our live show too. And so, yeah, Ange, a few months into 2015, I think, kind of jumped on board. She really wouldn't take the co-host like reins until like really 2016, maybe. She would never say she's the co-host. We would say she's the unofficial co-host. So that's when she came on, and she just has a really great knack for interviews. She's good at it. And I think one of your questions was like, how do you guys prep for our interviews? We don't. We do separate prepping. And when we get on with someone or we interview someone, that's the first time we're hearing each other's questions.
I would never have thought that. I'm so surprised to hear that.
I don't know where that came from.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Sometimes we will talk. If it's like, I don't remember. There have been very few times where we're like, well, you'll ask this and I'll ask this type of thing. But rarely that happens. Rarely. And I think that's a little bit of, I hate to use this word, but our special sauce a little bit. But yeah, that's how we prep. We don't prep. I mean, we prep, right, ourselves, hours of prep for every interview. But we don't come together and talk about our questions because we always have different questions.
I also was listening to the interview with cat person director Susanna Vogel. That was such a great interview.
Thank you.
It made me want to watch that movie, but kind of not want to watch that movie. It's like we've all been in that position. But I'm very intrigued because all the topics are just so on board about dynamics and male and female and dating and issues and boundaries, passive aggressive, toxic positivity.
Yes.
Male bullshit. But I was just like listening to that. I was like, oh God.
Mm-hmm.
It's still happening.
Oh, it's still happening. And I think cell phones have made it worse.
And cell phones make everything worse.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not kidding. I'm really going to look into, someone told me that they're free on some other plan, but I really want a flip phone. Like that's my 2024 goal.
I miss my flip phone.
Yeah. I think I just have to do that. I'm going to have, the fucking whatever backup for bitch talk and videos and whatever. But like on the day-to-day on the reg, I just want a flip phone. You can still text on those.
Yes, you can. Who's out there that you haven't been able to talk to that you want to get on the show?
Ali Wong. I had an email out to her in 2016 before she blew up because I know she's from here. She grew up out here in the Sunset. Our good friend, I don't know if you know the name Shang Wang, who's a comedian. We met him when we were at our production studio in the early 2000s. He and I worked on the same show. We've known Shang for forever. He's the godfather to her children. He wrote, I'm not kidding you, he wrote on Fresh Off the Boat with her. So we have 1 degree of separation, but she just won't come on our show. But she also does not do a lot of publicity. She will do like top tier Vanity Fair, Vogue. And I get that. I get it. but she will not come on our show.
Damn it.
We have so much to talk to her about.
Oh my God, you guys. Oh man, I'm sending the vibes out there to her. What's next for Bitch Talk?
We're in a movie. It's called Gasoline Rainbow. And it premiered in a bunch of film festivals in Europe over the summer, which is crazy to say. It was at the Venice Film Festival, which is bonkers. We really wanted to go, but we couldn't. So we are going to the cast and crew premiere in Portland in December. And these guys we met at Sundance of 2020, and it was our favorite film of the year and for all years. It's called Bloody Nose, Empty Pockets. It is about a dive bar closing in Las Vegas. It is so good, Traci. If you can find it and see it, like we bought it, I will just put it on whenever. So we really befriended these guys. It's funny, these guys they're not from, but they've lived in New Orleans for forever, of course. And we just bonded. And so they asked us to be in this movie in 2021, summer of 2021, which was like the hottest summer in Portland. It was 116 degrees when we landed. It was crazy. So I'm interested to see how the film turns out. And then Sundance is in January. So we're going back and we're building a Bay Area media house, Bay Area creative house full of women. And we're going to have journalists. We're going to have people that work in the film industry, us. And yeah, it's about damn time that there's more women at Sundance and women of color. So that's what we're doing at Sundance. So that's what's happening. That's coming up very soon.
That sounds amazing. I love to hear the media house for women. That makes me so happy. Who are you inviting into the media house? Like, has that already been happening? Has that happened in the past?
Yeah, Bitch Talk has gone through some changes this year. And they're a little rough. They're still a little rough, but Ange and I are still a team. And we've done Sundance since 2019, even through the pandemic. We weren't going, obviously. But the standard was that we watch, I'm not kidding you, up to 20 plus films, even before we get there. We stream them, we watch them. And I think the most interviews we've done in like a 4-day span was like 60 something. And we don't want to do that anymore. We love everyone we meet. We love the interviews, but it was just like a grind and we didn't get to enjoy it. I shouldn't say that. We enjoyed it, of course, but we didn't get to go to screenings. Like everything we watched was on a laptop and we didn't get to go to Q&As. We didn't go to as many events as we'd like to. So we're going to change that this year. We'll watch a lot of films, but we're not going to do what we used to do. We're not going to grind it out. We're not going to do 4 or 5 hours of interviews every day. We're going to space it out. And the idea of the creative media house, we befriended someone from NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour. Her name's Aisha Harris. Over the summer, she lives in Oakland now. She moved during the pandemic from New York. And she covers the same films we do, except she doesn't do the interviews. She reviews. And so I just thought, I asked her if she was going to go to Sundance. Were they thinking of it? If so, like I've have it in a house, houses in Park City. I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? Is the house and the transportation and all of that stuff. So she was in, and then I just have other people in the film industry that are local that I put out the idea. I'm like, look, we're doing this thing. The house can fit up to 12 people. It's obviously more cost effective if we have more people. And it's more fun to have these experiences. And there's a lot of stuff in the last few years that are coming out of here, coming out of Oakland, coming out of San Francisco, coming out of the Bay. And so we should be a part of that too. And we should focus on those things. So that's kind of where it came from. I just had a hair up my ass to do this. And also, again, there are not a lot of women and or women of color that are at Sundance. There's just not. We've seen it growing, but it's just not enough. So we want to bring the representation there and help with that. So we also will have right now, at least someone from the Chronicle. There's in our house and someone who's covered film for forever for the Chronicle. And yeah, and then some folks that just work in the industry that are going to be at Sundance and just been connected that way.
I love it. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've never been to Sundance. I can just assume it would be a bunch of pale and male, kind of like the podcasting world. I think the podcasting world is changing.
For sure.
I mean, I haven't been in the game that long, but I can definitely see some changes. I think that is fabulous. I'm so happy to hear about your brainchild. just talk really briefly about, 2023. Yeah, there's a lot we can really dwell on because there's so much shit that just happened in October. But 2023 going into 2024, what do you think about that?
No, this was a topic earlier this week, and today's only Wednesday. For people listening, it's only Wednesday. I already talked about this on Monday. I am personally and thinking about bitch talk because that's my creative outlet and the thing that makes me the most happy and stressed out all at the same time. Just really trying to think of building a cozy space for my mental health because 2024 is going to be very hard politically. It's going to be very tough. I mean, it already is, but we are really getting back into it, whether we like it or not, and how to engage, but also disengage for the year. So, my husband, Storied San Francisco, he's like, he did this during Obama. He really did some of the groundwork stuff. He went to Nevada. He knocked on doors. I've never done that ever. I'm a little intimidated to do that, to be honest. But he wants to do that, I think, which feels big. I don't know how I'm going to, or bitch talk will be handling politics. I mean, we like to talk about voters' rights. We have people from the ACLU on, we'll probably talk about it in that way. People making films and documentaries about all this stuff, which I'm sure will be coming out within the next year, just about voting and gerrymandering. And I mean, we just got gerrymandered in San Francisco. Good old liberal San Francisco got gerrymandered. So yeah, just more grassroots stuff. And, also people should be thinking about just their local politics. It's going to be all Biden and Trump next year, but look into who's running in your backyard. That could be scary or it could be really inspiring. So I think mentally as a podcast and as a person, just trying to figure out how we're going to handle that, how I'm going to handle that.
I hear you. And I'm right there with you about how to engage and disengage and be smart and be safe and not get sucked in. So yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. So you have at least one person with you. I'm sure you have a lot more, but just to let you know.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So thank you 1,000 times. This was so fun. And I still have a million more questions to ask you. But maybe, that will be part 3, part 4, part 5.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Traci.
And that is it. That is the last podcast for 2023. Happy holidays, everyone. If you're going out New Year's Eve, have fun and be safe. To everyone in the bar and restaurant industry working that night, good luck and make some money. Thank you actually to all of my guests throughout 2023. Thank you for your time. Thank you for letting me interview you. I've learned so much from each of my guests, which is something I didn't really anticipate when I started this podcast. And it is such a lovely part of this experience. So thank you one more time. Remember, please support your local businesses. Please support your local restaurants and local bars. They really need the help. It's been rough and they're probably still 2.5 years in debt. So please think about that when you're spending your money this holiday season. And one more time, thank you, Erin, one half of the Bitch Talk podcast. I can't wait to hear about Sundance and the Media House. That is so exciting. A little bit of what's in store for Booze Nation, the podcast in January. Angela Tabora, the other half of Bitch Talk, is going to be my guest in January. So yes, we're going to get all of the bitches on here. Thank you, Jeff Hunt of Storied SF, for interviewing me. That was so unexpected and so fun. Another highlight of the year. That interview will be in my show notes. One more time. Have a great holiday season. Thank you all very much for listening. And please tip your bartender.